Yes, geezers, Specie here. If you don't already, make sure you follow me on Twitch. I stream Gwent every day at 3:30 p.m. GMT. I think it's BST now because the clocks went forward. 3:30 UK time every day onwards. We're building a vampire deck, and I'm going to do it the classic way. I used to do this all the time, where I just build the deck from scratch. Whenever I build a deck, guys, I always like to just start with a clean slate, and I put the best cards in the deck, and then eventually the deck just completes itself. So we're building a vampires deck, but it's going to look a little bit different from before. A lot of the time, you'd always play Sabbath. You might play a Defender and Unseen Elder to use those cards multiple times. Being able to replay a Defender in particular is really good. We see that a lot in Skellige as well, because they could Purify at round 1, but then they probably don't have a Purify for round 2. Might end up Heatwave and Defender, happy days. The big issue is that Sabbath at the moment is really bad, because there's so many decks which have really good units that you're going to be summoning in. I'm talking Melusine, Sigfold, in Skellige, for example. In NR, you've got things like Radovid and Foltest Pride. Against Squirtle, it's probably pretty decent, but overall, it's not great. So we're going to want to go a different approach, and we're going to want to go for quite a control-heavy approach, in my opinion. So already like Heatwave, Muzzle are like two cards that are like very likely, but they wouldn't be the first cards you put in, but they're going to be in the deck anyway. As I say, I like to build my decks by just putting the best card in first. Regis is the best card. The second best card, which is always going to be in your vampire decks, is the Fleder. And you use the combination with Operator as well as Incubus. In my opinion, 2 Incubus. There's some decks that only play 1 though, but we'll put 2 in for the moment, and we could maybe remove one of the Incubuses later. The other card, which works just so well with this setup, is going to be this Undying Thirst card. Which is just incredible that this is going to be one of the first cards that goes into my decks. There's Feast for Blood as well. This is always going to be in there. It's an offensive purified, so you can get rid of defenders while also giving you some bleeding. And yeah, there's this Feast for Blood card, which I'm sure is on my screen and you guys are reading. There it is. Applying 6 bleeding when you've got a bunch of Fleders is just fantastic. If you're not familiar with the combination, what you're going to do is you're going to Operator a Fleder, and then later on, you're going to be able to use Incubus on Fleder, calling in your opponent's Fleder. A lot of the time with Incubus, if you just try and use them without Operator, if your opponent doesn't play a 6 provision unit, you're not going to be able to use your Incubus onto the Fleder. So yeah, that's a big problem. Also, as I mentioned, it's going to be quite a control-heavy deck. A card that's just obviously fantastic is going to be Toe Prince. Heatwave, Muzzle, I think, are just 2 really solid options. Now, here's where it maybe gets a little bit controversial, but I'm a bit of a believer in a Neuromancy in this style of deck. I look at Regis as being very similar to Gord, being that it's a card I want to mulligan in round 1. It's a card I probably want to mulligan in round 2, but it's a card I still want to have access to in round 3, and a Neuromancy gives you that. Similarly, when you've got cards like Heatwave and Muzzle and Offensive Purifies, having this in Neuromancy is just a really nice way of being able to answer all your opponent's threats. Like if your opponent plays a Defender, you want your Purify. If your opponent plays a Letitia, you want your Muzzle. If your opponent plays a Scenario, you want your Heatwave, all those kinds of things. So I'm a big believer in an Neuromancy in this style of deck. Monsters just doesn't have an efficient way of thinning like something like a Skellige does with a Discard package. It doesn't have Mage Assassins, all those kinds of things. However, a Neuromancy I do have a big problem with, but a card that is just proving to be really strong in the current meta is Fisher King. Fisher King got buffed a couple months back. It's one of my OG cards. I've got it on the wall next to me. I played it in my Onslaught deck, Pirates deck, maybe like 3 or 4 months ago. Two or 3 months ago, I think is more fair. Freddy played this Fisher King card in the Onslaught deck he played this weekend, and also really sang its praises. And we've been seeing more pro players increasingly using this card in their decks. Like I've been seeing it in Sigfold decks a lot, and I've even, yeah, there's just a lot of decks I've seen this guy in. I've tried it in Elf decks as well instead of Maxi. There's lots of utility for this card. And in this deck in particular, if you don't have your Neuromancy, you can put your Neuromancy on top. If you have used your Neuromancy twice, you might just put your Regis on top or whatever it might be. Similarly, if you're on the red coin and you don't have Curse Scroll, you could put a Fleder in your hand to Operator it. So you're just investing a couple of provisions, more than a 4 provision card, to have that little bit of extra consistency. You could play a Maxi. You're basically spending 1 provision more on Maxi. So Maxi or Fisher King, either or of these cards are probably going to be in the deck. Cool. We can have a look really at just like the vampire cards then, because I know obviously these are going to be the ones that we're looking at a lot. And in my opinion, there's 2 standout cards here. It's none of the 4s. It's none of the mid-rangey ones. It's not the Oriana. We're not playing Unseen Elder. We're non-devotion. We don't have Sabbath. We're not going to play a Defender because there's so many Purifies. And that is going to be Crimson Curse and DETLAFF. Which isn't what you would typically see, but in this deck we're really just trying to get last say. We're not staying low to the floor per se because of Fleders, but Crimson Curse is just giving a lot of points in a round of bleeding. It's going to be triggering our Fleders a whole bunch. Cards like Nekarat and Alb, while they're great, they cost 5 provisions. and they're just going to get removed so often. There's so many people that have 4 damage removals. There's a lot of movement text going around for the Neckarats as well. So these cards I'd rather avoid if possible. And Crimson Curse and DETLAFF just apply a whole bunch of bleeding. DETLAFF in particular is just an incredibly well-statted card. You wouldn't play this card previously because it makes your Sabbath worse. But if you're not playing Sabbath, this guy is just auto-include. You're applying up to 4 turns of Crimson Curse while also being a threat on the board with potential... damage per turn. You know, you can just damage your bleeding cards and potentially even spawn yourself an Ekimara. So these 2 cards, in my opinion, go into the deck. Now, it's getting a little bit sticky. I kind of remember the deck roughly. Another card that I just really like is Mushy Truffle. Mushy Truffle plus these Lesser Witch cards in a non-devotion deck. Again, we're not worried about Sabbath. A lot of the time you would want to be Sabbathing out cards like Fledders. So the Lesser Witches just give you a nice proactive option. Mushy Truffle, a nice carryover play as well. You can use Mushy Truffle to protect your engines. Also, interesting, Lesser Witch is like a surprisingly decent operator target in some situations. So Lesser Witch makes the cut with Mushy Truffle in my opinion. Also at 4 provisions, you guys know 4 provision cards, you should know by this point, are the best cards in your deck. You want to include so many 4 provision cards because then you can just cram in more golds. By including more of these 4 provisions cards, I'm able to include more of these high-end gold cards. So as you can see, we're at 14 provisions, which means we're going to have 2 4 provision cards and a 6, or a couple of 5 provision cards and a 6. And I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of struggling to remember exactly what the cards are. There's an argument for Drowners. I'm pretty sure these Drowners were not actually in the list I was just looking at. You might want to consider playing like a Squirrel as well. Squirrel's really solid as well as a card to deal with things like the Melusines if you can't Heatwave it. You could play a Megascope as well. There's all sorts of options. I can't actually remember exactly the one that I had in mind, but all these are solid. And then I was also looking at the 6th provision card of Gale. I'm a big believer in Gale. I feel like it's a really underrated card. It's a nice control tool while also being a decent bit of tempo. If you've got bleeding on a card, having that free removal is pretty damn solid. So this is the list I play. Obviously, I'm 2 provisions over. You're going to be looking at ditching a couple of these 4s. Maybe the Drowners, maybe the Squirrel. You could also ditch the Lesser Witches and play a different high-end card if there's anything that stands out to you. There's not really for me though that stands out. Like Monsters doesn't have a lot of good high-end gold cards. If you just look at the options, there's not really that much to work with. A lot of these decks in the past have run She Who Knows. I'm personally not a massive fan of the card. So this is what I'm going to run for. I'm going to run a couple of Drowners. They're a control tool, which this deck is feeling like. Maybe again like Squirrel, maybe you just play 1 Drowner and a Squirrel, for example. That could be a realistic option. Yeah, that's the deck anyway. Let's crack on with the games and see how it gets on. I'm going to go for 1 Drowner and 1 Squirrel. Maybe we end up playing a couple of Drowners though. This is the deck. Hope you guys enjoyed this style of intro. If you'd like to see me do more of these deck building style of intros like I used to do way back in the day, do let me know. And let's crack on with the games. I'm just going to be getting into a game and you're going to see the first game I play. So let's go. Okay. We're up against first game. We're up against Formation again. I've got Squirrel in the deck at the moment instead of Megascope and instead of like a second Drowner. Against Formation, maybe there's going to be a coup. Maybe not though. And we have Operator plus Fledder, which is always nice. A lot of the time this deck can struggle a little more on red coin because you don't have that Cursed Scroll. Then the next decision really is if we ditch Feast for Blood, maybe Natural Selection goes. Natural Selection looks a little bit dodgy, I think, in round 1 in this matchup because of the armor they're going to get on their soldiers. And they can Crystal Skull the first soldier, the first one they play, right? It's a pretty chunky lad, no Pride Dive available. We've done well to already draw the Aneromancy as well, though. I think we're just going to start off with Operator onto Fledder. We're just going to want to get a Fledder into our opponent's graveyard, which then sets up our Incubus for round 2. We could take a Leader Charge, because obviously the Fledder's just going to die quite easily, but I'd rather not commit into a Leader Charge from here. Hello, McPaul. Good to see you. I do want to play some more chess, man. I haven't played since I last streamed it. Okay, so our graveyard's now set up. We could play Lesser Witch. We could play Feast for Blood. Obviously, if we go Feast for Blood, we're going to be getting our Regis carryover, so I think I'm going to go for that. If you control a vampire. Okay, well, honestly, I've never actually done that before, where I've played this card and it hasn't bled. Yeah, that's awkward. First time for everything. What a great start, eh? So we managed to not get any carryover on our Regis. Brilliant. This card kind of feels like it's too good to commit. Not great, this. Not great. We could have probably applied some more pressure with like a leader charge as well, right? Maybe leader charge was just the play. Would have been out of the range of Tourney Joust, of course. Then we would have had a Vampire on the board. We could have played the Feast for Blood and then... Yeah, but we're going to take the pass. Going to try and hold on to the Mushy Truffle for round 3. For round 2, rather, so then I can use the carryover for round 3. If I'm expecting a push from my opponent, then Mushy Truffle is definitely a nice play to just have this carryover, but I'm not really too sure what my opponent's going to be trying to do. So I'm going to play it round 2 instead. Try and have that round 3 carryover, especially if they dry pass, right?
You're one sexy witch and I'm here to please.
So we did a really poor job of not getting any Regis carryover here. Let's have a look, see what we're top decking. Second Lesser Witch ain't so bad. Gonna ditch the Feast for Blood. Regis can also go. This is what I'm saying about the Anira, right? Like, I just wouldn't feel comfortable doing this if it wasn't for the Aniromancy. I want to have a playable hand here. In a lot of situations, just like a Gourd, it's just very nice to be able to mulligan away. And again, particularly when you've got cards like Heatwave, Muzzle. There's also the potential we could Aniromancy for Fisher King to just put Regis on top of the deck here if they end up dry passing, right? And that would give us still like Anira access to like any of these other cards for round 3. What Fisher King gives you is it just gives you that like extra consistency card while being quite cheap. Very, very similar to Maxi. Yeah, it's definitely quite scary. Gonna start off non-committally, which we may regret. But of course, if they pass on 7, getting the Truffle down and then the Fisher King play I mentioned is exactly what I'm going to want to do just to take the round. But yeah, the fact that I've not had any bleeding down so far in this whole game is a bit of a stinker, mate. Lydia's a big commitment. I think I'm just going to continue with my non-committal approach. And then... yeah, I mean, the other thing to consider is Incubus is pretty bad here. Because the Fleder, they can use it themselves, right? But you can see why I want the Truffle with the Lesser Witches. Nice proactive option, which the deck doesn't have that much of. Also the Truffle carryover. Just gives us that little bit of something extra. It's also just a solid 4 provision card. You see a Muzzle come through. They are now past that mark of 7. I'm going to go for the Crimson Curse. It's a very slow card. Takes a long time to develop, so let's get it down. Now, Regis is still at 1. We've missed out on, like, we've played 6 cards and we've had no bleeding. So this is something we need to really try and work on for the next game, is trying to get some bleeding through a little bit sooner next time. Asir's going to put something back. Not really sure what that was, guys, to be honest. We could also take the DETLAFF here. Kind of just like the look of going for a Fleder, though. So if we take the Blood Scent, it's basically playing for 4 tempo. The thing is, if you hit the Fleder here, this would not grow. But if you hit the Illusionist, this does grow. And it refreshes its counter at the start of your turn. So there's also an argument like to get the DETLAFF down because this round isn't going on for that long. Like maybe the play was just go for the DETLAFF, get the other Crimson Curse going, right? But it was a little bit more committal. So we can get away with this Fisher King play now. It's going to be enough points. Put the Regis on top. So Fisher King having a positive impact straight away here. Hey Bolt, what's up, man? Good to see you, mate. Hope everything's good with you. Hand looks pretty solid. Toe Prince is an option off of Venero. We have the Incubus as a proactive play. It's more proactive. It's better. It's a better proactive play than Fleder. So I'm happy with the hand, I think. There's nothing I really want to change. Maybe you could argue that Undying Thirst is a little bit weak, as I'm only going to have one Incubus. Feast for Blood is solid in case they have Defender. I think that's an upgrade.
No worries. Sins of the flesh are my speciality.
Yeah, there's also an argument like a Pella, so you could muzzle Fleder and then Pella, it could be decent, but realistically with Feast for Blood, you just don't need that extra Purify. We want to try and get a Vampire Pocket for our DETLAFF as well. Gale's one card that can do that, so if you're not familiar, he's going to deal 3 damage. Okay, that looks quite scary. That does look rather scary. We'll just take the Feast for Blood here. It's going to be down at 3 strength. We could then Gale. Gale's going to boost by 8. It's a lot of points. That is for sure. So they're using the value of uninteractivity to be a little bit annoying here. Could a Neuromancy, of course, into something. In an ideal world, there'd be a Neuromancy into a Toe Prince. But Incubus is also still an option. There's Fledders in both graveyards. So I think that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to go for the Incubus instead.
Garments are shackles that restrain our desires.
Yeah, and next play is going to be Gale, and then we can go for the DETLAFF. And we're going to get the 4 turns still. We could go for the DETLAFF now. This is pretty damn solid. Not bad. It's like a, what, 14-point card here? Dealt 3 damage, but basically took away 1 bleeding. You can see why I like this card a lot. I've always loved this card, actually. Okay, we didn't get any extra turn of weather. Perhaps I should have used my Mushy Truffle to buff my DETLAFF up out of the range of like a muzzle hero. Doesn't seem like there would be many better opportunities to do so. Yeah, so this is a misplay on my part. DETLAFF obviously working as an engine, if you can get him to stick. So that's another thing that's nice about the Truffle, being able to buff DETLAFF out of muzzle range is pretty significant a lot of the time. Hey Parallax, thanks so much for the sub, mate, I appreciate it. Okay, we can now Heatwave Truffle, I suppose, is worth 6. I could also just take the Regis. I'm going to gain a point by going Regis first, though. I think I might just take the Regis and see if I can get a better Heatwave than 6.
Anything in particular interest you?
Okay, and they just give up, so... Cool, GG. Happy days. We're 1-0. You can see the deck's got a lot of legs. Let's go again. Alright, second game. Let's have a gander. Fisher King, already. I'm liking the look of it. Can put my Neuromancy on top for the next round. That's pretty sick for this deck. Regis can go. Again, a Neuromancy, Fisher King, Wombo combo. Love it. Double Undying Thirst seems like a little bit much. We're up against Scoia'tael, the Woods Must Abandon. They've got Curse Scroll, which is interesting. Janna should be good here. Get rid of an Undying Thirst. No Operator either. That's like another card, which Fisher King can help with. Like, imagine I didn't have the Fleder, but I had Operator. I could just put a Fleder on top. Liking the Fisher King a lot in this one. I like Fisher King in every deck, guys. You might have noticed. I need to get Fisher King in the backdrop for the Open this weekend, man. My backdrop's so bad, but getting a little bit of Fisher King and Pella action in there would be pretty sick, actually. Something I should try and get sorted. Okay. We want to try and get Bleeding as soon as possible for this Regis carryover. I think, therefore, I'm just going to take this Undying Thirst. Because this is just a carryover play, right? I can't go for the Feast for Blood. I'm not convinced I really want to apply so much pressure by going for a Crimson Curse. So this is just a 4 provision card that's going to give me carry over on my Regis by just getting this bleeding down instantly. It's a big commitment.
You stand no chance.
And to be honest, we're not really too interested in committing. Having said that, Heatwave is not really doing very much at all in this matchup, so I suppose it's probably worth taking the Heatwave still, even if we don't really want to actually compete that much this round. Like, it's just going for 5 points later. So by Heatwaving this now, they might panic and like overcommit even more. But Heatwave's just trash in this matchup. It's just only half decent here. Fisher King's my favourite card in the game, guys, right now. I love it. Big up to CDPR for buffing it to 6p, 6 power, just like as a different option over Maxi. Yeah, by taking the Heatwave here, we just probably scare them a little bit to hopefully overcommit. Obviously, maybe like looking back, maybe Crimson Curse round 1 was the play. You know? Maybe we should have just gone to apply some more pressure.
As you command, Daisy.
Again, we might just be interested in muzzling the Vanadane here. Like, I don't know, man. I feel like I just should have gone Crimson Curse. Like, on this coin against Squirtle, they're going to have a bit of a hard time. So Fisher King's not going to be quite enough for us if they do take the pass here. How did they buff the Fisher King? I think it was 7 provisions. And I think it wasn't as... I think they double buffed it. It was like 7 provisions, 5 power or something like that.
So sword in hand.
We want to also get the Aileron from them, right? For sure. Fisher King for a Nero is just so good in the stack. Like, Maxi doesn't do that for you, right? Like, Maxi showed, like, she might, but this is just guaranteed consistency here. Card's just fantastic. Okay, that's the Aileron. Perhaps my muzzle play was just... ends up committing a lot, right? Like I said, I wasn't going to commit. Like, the Heatwave wasn't a commitment because it sucks, but the muzzle certainly was. Probably just shouldn't have gone for it. Incubus is bricked to begin the round, so I should probably mulligan it. Drowner should be solid enough against the Swordmasters. What we did do a good job though is getting some carryover onto Regis.
I was trained by Clara Larissa de Winter herself.
We don't want to commit a leader charge because they're probably just going to pass. And we would just take Feast for Blood, I imagine, to get Regis carryover. Could also just take a natural selection though. Say that Feast for Blood is the card I want for round 3. Regis is probably getting heat waved anyway because I don't have last say, right? Definitely not super happy with how I've played this game. Could have gone Truffle here as well, but like I decided we just probably want the Incubus carryover instead, but maybe Truffle was the play. Truffle gives us a nice proactive option. Incubus is also an option. If we want to focus more on engines. Gale isn't doing too much probably in this matchup. I think the Incubus looks like the play. Yeah, it's quite like this just gets heat waved, but it's either that or Regis. This is also points for Regis. So it's basically giving us, you know, 2 engines. It gives us the Fleder on the board and it gives us the Regis on the board too. Yo, Vish, thanks so much for the sub, man. Let's go, Vish. Thanks so much for the 5-month support. I really do appreciate it, mate. So far, I haven't been particularly impressed by the Drowner. I must admit.
None shall tread on us.
So we can afford to go for the Fleder here because the bleeding's guaranteed to proc it. And we're going to want to get the DETLAFF down now because he's going to be applying 4 turns of Blood Moon.
They can hide, but there is no escape.
And that's also where the Drowner can come in, right? Like, I mean, I could just apply it all to the front row, but I can just like move a unit from the front to the back, I guess. Maybe it's just fine to do it here, though. Like, maybe it's actually better to have just 7 flipping turns in the same row, right? Because it's going to be buffing the Fleders the whole time. What is this deck? Mid-range non-devotion vampires? Yes. Pretty much, exactly. We're popping off, guys. They don't have a muzzle, apparently. Just have a couple of leader charges. DETLAFF's going to get taken out, though. We could do some waylays in the back, mate. There we go. So we can take the Drowner now, and then the Mushy Truffle's going to trigger the Thrive, maybe?
Coexistence. No such thing.
Probably should have gone back row with this, right? I need to be thinking about what I want to be buffing this Fleder with my Truffle, right? As you can see, we're popping off. Verno's going to be doing a lot of damage, though, that's for sure.
We shall retake the cities that were stolen from us.
'We're just going to hold on to this Leader Charge to buff the Fleder again. We're going to lose out on a point of bleeding with it, but...
No mercy!
10 to the good. We have Truffle still to click. That's a Spores. That's a Stinger.
Your powers of deduction seem to have waned not one bit.
Alright, baby, let's go. Easy game. Wasn't even close, let's be honest. I don't know what the last card is. Heatwave, I guess. Let's go. Let's go. That was convincing. Very convincing, actually. I'm gonna keep the scroll just in case they play Nero. I don't want to regret holding on to it, right? That's a very good heatwave being offered. I don't want to play the Fleder because I want to Operator it. I'm going to be putting in here. I kind of just, I'm liking this Undying Thirst play just to, you know, play a 4, get carry over on Regis.
A superb specimen.
That's a follow Papa. Look at it.
It's a pity I can never finish.
And here on top with the Fisher King. Watch out for the Unicorn. Good point. Thanks. Maybe I should have held on to Regis. Be hitting DETLAFF, I guess, otherwise, probably. Yeah. Squirrel's looking pretty good on this, like, big tool. Selfie to her. Sort of a similar situation where I'm quite worried about getting 2-0'd. Fruits is going to want to bleed. So Truffle seems like the option of choice here. And again, this Undying Thirst is just allowing me to hold on to like these other bleeding cards. Like you would have noticed in the last one, like, we don't have like Unseen Elder where there's just going to be a ton of bleeding every turn. And we don't have Alps and Nekarats. We're really just playing like bleeding on deploy value rather than bleeding engines, which I think is a good thing because the bleeding engines are just going to get removed most of the time. Pretty much every deck is playing like 4 damage removal cards.
It's a pity I can never finish.
I can get away with this. Some more points on Regis to continue on as well. It's a 10-point card for 4 provisions. So yeah, they're going to be looking to res this Self-Eater, I guess. Maybe they clicked it too many times, so kind of feels like a misplay. Like they're going to be incubusing Self-Eaters back, right? Which means they shouldn't really be clicking. I guess they don't even have, there's no 6 provision unit in my graveyard, so they can't even do that just yet. Regis 6 points from round 1. We have the Mushy Truffle to resist the bleed. We have a Nero on top from the Fisher King. We've done a good job of just making the deck a lot, you know, a lot more bleed resistant here. The Squirrel's definitely not bad at dealing with the Gankian. The Incubus is incredibly overpowered here, man. Because I can pull a 2-strength Self-Eater for a Fleder. It's obviously not great straight away, but yeah, unsurprising to see I'm getting bled. A little controversial not to use a leader charge, but they might just be setting up their graveyard and fancy a long round. I think realistically I should have probably just leader charged her. Hey Turtip, what's up, man? Yeah, mate, it was the first thing I got sent this morning. My friends, I put it in my group chat. Mate, it was a... I don't think it was weak, man. You can't punch a guy on main stage of Oscars. It was a... It wasn't staged, right? No way. No way.
Another little thunderbolt.
Mate, this Gale on Griffin potentially could be ginormous. Now, what I really want to do here is get ahead, right? But I'd also like to get my Crimson Curse ticking along. That does the job, right? They're going to lose 2 points, maybe 3. Does it do the job? I guess I'll just do this.
Naught can stop me, not even death.
Could heatwave it, of course. I'd rather save the heatwave though, and they're going to go below Sabbath, so they can't take the pass. And also the bleeding carries over, right? I'd rather save the heatwave for Gurney, for example. And just because I have a whole bunch of damage, it just feels like we're in a pretty decent spot here. I haven't even heard what the joke was. Cool. So I managed to save the heatwave. They have no carryover. We invested the mushy truffle, but we got card advantage. Very nice. Didn't use the Anero. Could have been an option. Regis is here. Incubus is just insanely good here too. Drowner seems somewhat weak. He called his wife G.I. Jane because she's bald. Wait, that was it? Are you serious? She has a medical condition that causes baldness? Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough. I mean, that makes a lot more sense. That is quite funny, though. That is quite funny, let's be honest. Especially because of his reaction. It's more funny because of his reaction. Muzzle's good, but so's the Incubus, man. Incubus is broken here, man. We got really unfortunate with these top decks like Muzzle, Incubus. These cards are just insane here. Incubus is so good proactively. Kind of too good not to take.
Guaranteed.
He joked about her in 2016, right? Okay, I think there's a misplay from me. I think I was supposed to go front row here with my Incubus because I want the pocket of vamps, right? Should not really given myself an easy way of doing. This is going to be on a random row, so let's do this. It does just look like I want Feast for Blood here though, right? Rather than... Okay. I can just play this for the moment. Yeah, this should have gone front row. For sure. Obviously don't have that much left in the way of bleeding. So, like, maximizing the amount of Crimson Curse is even more important.
They're surprisingly clean creatures, as it happens.
Wait, Mr. Beast's favorite card, guys. Let's go. I mean, I said it was really sick, but I mean, this self-feeder still popped off, so maybe it wasn't as good as I thought. Only 3 turns, it could have been 4. But that's buffing up the Fleder as well. This is the Gurney.
Battles are won or lost by the commanders, not by sorceresses.
To tip 90210 donated $99. Lobster tonight.
Bro! Jesus, $99? Mate, Turtip, thank you so much. I don't know how to cook lobster though. Am I going to be able to order it? Am I going to be able to order it, dude? How does one cook a lobster? Oh my days, Turtip. Thank you so much for all the support, man. Jeez. That's so kind of you, mate. I'm a little bit worried about my Gale, guys. Yeah, I guess that works. Just order a pizza. Thank you, mate, so much, man. So kind of you. We're like a little bit of bleeding off. I really wanted to gale this, right? But I'm not going to be able to. Oh, wait. I could have, right? I could have just dealt 1 damage, maybe. I could have regist it down. So it's going to be at 6. It's going to be at 5. Regis puts it at 2. I can't if the last card's a relic, right? I could have because it isn't a relic. Cool, GG. Turtip, mate. My goodness. I'm so grateful for that, man. So kind. You boil water, add salt, drop the fucker in the pot. Does it have to be alive, though? That right? Is there anything 5 provision cards you guys can think of? We could also ditch Gale, but I've been really enjoying the Gale, to be fair. Oh! Okay, so it's gone to the charity thing. Maybe it's because I did the charity event. Mate, I'm happy with that. I'd rather it go there, Turtip. So it's not gone to me, it's gone to charity. I'm happy with that, mate. That works for me, man. It's going to a good cause. I'm very happy with that. But I will look into exactly how that's happened. Which link did you use, Turtip? I'll definitely try and make sure, because that might not be, you know, necessarily where you wanted it to go. If that makes sense. I mean, I'm sure you don't mind, but you get what I mean. Ah, panic. Which Turtip, which like link did you use? If you don't mind me asking. So I'll just make sure that the, you know, link is clear and whatnot. All right, let's go for an operator play here. A little bit greedy if it is meditating mages, because, you know, really just like control card should be the priority. Perfect. Thank you, mate.
No one is born a mage. The vast majority lack even the potential.
A little bit nervous. Just don't hit the volunteer. Nice. Thank you, mate. You're too kind, man. Apologies for the confusion. But it has gone to a fantastic cause.
Not I.
We could gale this, and then this is just going to take the bleeding. Perhaps. Obviously, I could move this and try and kill the Leticia, but it's kind of too late, right?
Death and blood are spectres between us.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord, guys. This has gone a little bit pear-shaped. Hasn't it? A little bit pear-shaped, I'd say. Don't think I should have gone operator. Probably should have gone for a flipping purify and then dealt with this. Right. How much patience? I don't want to talk about it, Feldy, to be honest, mate.
If only they knew.
I really don't want to talk about it, mate. What card is the best? I guess Truffle. It's not that bad. Patience 5. This doesn't scale itself anymore, right? That's the main thing.
You've met your match, puppet.
Seems like a pretty decent pass, I guess. Now comes the Archgriffin. Don't say that, dude. Don't say it's the Archgriffin, man. That's not Archgriffin, guys. Good news. Okay, we're at Patience 14 and Patience 12. We got the call right with the Fisher King. Fisher King yet again just popping off, mate, you know, with the getting the carryover play for us. Looking for so many golds though. Toe Prince, Regis, Muzzle. Could have gone worse, I guess. It's one way of looking at it, right?
Sexy witch, and I'm here to please.
They don't have... I mean, I guess they do have Seal. There's no point taking the leader straight away, right? I might as well wait for both to be down.
It's war. Severed limbs, blood, and guts.
We need sleep. Ugh. Another test. So soon.
Yeah, 15 patients. Quite a lot.
Temeria has yet to speak its last.
Pretty good heatwave target. They have 12 damage, so the truffle doesn't save me from that.
From this day forward, all magic will be regulated.
I would also like to get the DETLAFF in as soon as possible.
End this battle already. I've more important things to do.
Okay. We could still take the heatwave. I guess it's just a nice time to take the DETLAFF though, right? Fortunately, they didn't find an alumni. Okay, I think I've sorted it now, Turtip.
Die by your side.
Like the charity link is still very much available. It's okay. That's just such a good heatwave, right? In fact, is this a better heatwave though? This heatwave is worth like 1,000,000 points, right? It's got to be better here. Probably better to damage this one. Yeah, like the charity link's still available, but like it's just the donation link I have below is now. I think you'll be able to tell when you click on it. I'll double check anyway in a second off this game.
It will not
We
be.
shall prevail.
Okay, we have the movement. Nice.
Battles are won or lost by the commanders, not by sorceresses.
Test.
To tip 90210 donated $5.
Thanks, mate.
Test.
You can tell on the landing page. It'll say if it's. I mean, you'll be able to tell with your receipt, I guess. What a guy, man. Oh, I already played the card. Let's do this then. I shouldn't have hit that because of PMP in it.
And it's all for me, Grog. Me knocky Grog.
We have each other's backs. That's more than most.
Pretty comfortable in the end. Pretty comfortable.
Your powers of deduction seem to have waned not one bit.
This deck has got the sauce, guys. Let me have a gander, mate. Thank you. Oh, well, look. Do 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 do.